Welcome to Jeff's Reviews. Today I'm taking a look at the Spellbinders Grand Calibur. The Grand Calibur is a die cut and embossing machine. It's a manual machine. Inside there's steel rollers on the top and bottom. What you do is you put your material and a die. This is a typical die that you can use with this. It's got a little raised ridge in the middle that cuts through your paper. And then depending on the sandwich you use, will either cut or emboss. And the sandwich I'm talking about is plastic plates. There's a base plate and a cutting plate that you put so that the dies are cutting against the cutting plate. Then there's also plates you use to emboss. That's a little bit thinner than the cutting plate. To cut, you simply put your dies down on the base plate, and you put your material that you want to cut over that. And then you run it through the machine. As you can see, I've been doing a whole bunch of work on this already. You can cut all kinds of different materials. I've cut Shrinky Dink plastic, some brass, copper, aluminum. These are wallpaper samples. There's cork, of course the regular scrapbooking paper. Sometimes things don't cut out. They actually did this. This actually works pretty good for these wallpaper samples. If you do it sometimes on the other side, put the paper in wrong, you can trim these strings up. But that works pretty good. This die is part of a set called Nestabilities. They go inside each other. A lot of the dies come as sets, that different sizes for different things you want to use. Here's the butterfly I just did. And you can see there's little pieces stuck in the die yet. You'll have to get like a little scribe tool to poke them out. All the dies will have holes when they have those little spots that cut out, so that you can poke out the little scrap pieces. And like I said, you can do metal, stuck to the cutting plate. I've done all kinds of little metal things and plastic. And then you can emboss by simply taking the correct plates and right here it really shows you the different plates you use. The embossing, I'll use just a regular die to emboss on this paper. What the embossing pad does is it gives a little less pressure on the die and on the material, so that it just impresses the die into the material a little bit instead of cutting it. And as you can see, it did cut it a little bit, but it mostly just embossed it. Depending on the paper thickness, it might rip the paper a little bit, but that does pretty good. And you can do a lot of crafts for like out of different papers you get for scrapbooking. You can also use other products, other companies' products. Sizzix has a bunch of these embossing folders. To do that, you need the specific size and these plates. There's a plate called a raspberry plate, but it's also the same thickness as a Sizzix plate. So I found that I can just use the Sizzix plates with this, but it's all about getting the correct sandwich when you do this. If you don't get the correct sandwich, you could break the machine. And there I don't know if you can see that, but I embossed the paper. And this is a honeycomb embossing. You can use quite a variety of the Nestabilities, stuff like that. Embossabilities is some of the other ones. But it's all these thin wafer dies. You can't use the big steel cut rule dies on this. But the Grand Calibur is a handy machine. It's a nice size. It does have a suction pad. It just doesn't stick to this plastic I'm using as a backdrop. The suction cup just sticks down like that. It does stick a little bit, but the handle comes off. Just fits, pressure fits on. It's a handy portable machine. I highly recommend it for like scrapbooking, die cutting. I'll be using it to make some little kids jewelry out of like Shrinky Dinks. I'm also going to make some fancier jewelry using some of the dies, making stuff like this, and then gluing that onto other materials like leather. This doesn't cut leather. These dies aren't thick enough, but I do have other machines. But that's the Grand Calibur from Spellbinders. I highly recommend this for a nice portable die cut and embossing machine. The full review will be at jeffsreviews.com, and thank you very much.